Good evening, everyone, and a hearty welcome to all of you to Aurora online classes. Dear students, today I'll continue the same lesson, and the lesson is from the diary of Anne Frank. As I said earlier, that this lesson from the diary of Anne Frank is an extract from the diary of a young girl. And the writer I told you in the previous class that Anne Frank herself is the writer, is the author of this story. She started writing at the age of 13. She was merely a 13-year-old girl. Despite being such a tender age, she was very sensitive, she was mature and wise, she was sharp and intelligent. We actually in this is the chronicle. The diary of a young girl is a chronicle, means she has mentioned everything and she has mentioned the events and incidents of her life while living in a hiding date wise. So when you mention some events or incidents date wise along with the dates, this is called chronicle. So actually this is a chronicle of her life. She talks about her early years of life, she talks about her school life, she talks about the her experience of the family while living in a hiding. So actually I taught you earlier that paper has more patience than people. She says paper has more patience than people. Actually, she was a very sensitive girl and she wanted to express her feelings, her intimate and personal feelings and problems with someone. But actually, no doubt she had a good family, she had relatives, she had her friends. But all the friends were not true. This is what she says. She says that though she had a loving family along with a few friends, but she could not discuss everything with those people. She was an introvert and she could not share her highly personal feelings and problems with everybody. So she wanted someone, she wanted a true friend with whom she could open out her heart, and she felt suffocated. She was not, she did not feel comfortable to share something very personal with the people around. She understood, she was intelligent enough to understand the difference between a real friend and so called friend. That is why she decided to write her diary, and she decided to make her diary her true friend, her best friend, with whom she could express even her highly personal things. She could confide in them. Actually, she was a mature and intelligent girl. It was moreover, I would say that it was moreover because of the terrible times. Time teaches everything. So, the circumstances, adverse circumstances, the unpleasant situations, the critical situation of life made her mature and more intelligent beyond her age. So let us talk about ahead what she thinks about it. Now I am back to the point that prompted me to keep a diary in the first place. I don't have a friend. Let me put it more clearly, since no one will believe that the 13-year-old girl is completely alone in the world. And I am not. I have loving parents and a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends. Underline it. I have a family, loving aunts, and a good home. No, on the surface, I seem to have everything except my one true friend. Underline it. All I think about when I am with friends is having a good time. I can't bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary, everyday things. We don't seem to be able to get any closer. That's the problem. Maybe it's my fault and we don't confide, means to seek to share something personal, confide in each other. In any case, that's just how things are, and unfortunately they are not liable to change. This is why I have started the diary. I taught you earlier she was introvert. She felt lonely and depressed, even having such a loving family. She had her sister older to her, 3 years older to her. She had her mother, father, friends, and some other relatives too. Despite having such a good family, she could not share, or she could not open up her heart with everyone. That is why she said that she could discuss with uh, her family members about the happenings of everyday life, about day to day life happenings, but she never discussed the highly personal feelings, the highly intimate, very close feelings and problems with anyone. So at that point of time, she felt suffocated, and she was left with no alternative than uh, opening her heart through her writings, through the pages of a diary. That is why she wanted someone she wanted someone in true sense. She wanted someone who who appears to be true to her, who who appears to be faithful to her, who appears to be loyal to her. So she made her diary a true friend, because diary is impersonal and non-reactive object. Whatever you feel to write, you you feel free to write anything on the paper, and the paper does not the paper does not raise any objection, and it does not give any such reaction, and it offers your friendship. It never rejects the offer of friendship. So she has started writing diary, and she made her diary a true friend. With it, she could open up her heart, she could open up her emotions, she could open up everything with the diary. And she named her diary, she called her diary Kitty. So Kitty was the name of her diary. She personified her diary as a true friend, and Kitty, she named her diary Kitty. And she addresses all her writings to Kitty. So Kitty is the name of a diary, and Kitty was her best friend. Kitty was her true friend, with whom she, with which she could express everything, even highly personal, even highly close, even highly intimate. Now, to enhance the image of this long awaited friend in my imagination, I don't want to jot down the facts in this diary the way most people would do, but I want the diary to be my friend, and I am going, underline it, I want the diary to be my friend, and I am going to call this friend Kitty. She called her diary Kitty, and her way of writing diary was different from other people. She was different from other people, the way she used to write her diary, because other people could mention the facts of their life. They could mention the facts and some uh, other things which are even unnecessary, they could mention. But she was not like that. She could mention her highly personal things with the diary. So she could confide in with the diary. Diary was her true friend, and she called her diary Kitty. Since no one would understand a word of my stories to Kitty if I were to plunge right in, I'd better provide a brief sketch of my life, much as I dislike doing so. So now, for for convenience, she wanted the readers to understand what she has written, and that is why she wants to give her a brief introduction about herself, about her family. Let us see what introduction she gives about her family. Otto Frank was her father. That is why it was a Frank family. My father, the most adorable father I have ever seen. Underline it. She is talking about her family, Frank family. Otto Frank. Otto Frank was her father. My father, the most adorable father I have ever seen, didn't marry my mother until he was 36 and she was 25. Means her father married her mother at the age of 36. When her father was 36 and her mother was 25, both of them got married. My sister Margot, she was the elder sister and she was 3 years older to she was 3 years older to N. My sister Margot was born in Frankfurt, Germany in 1926. I was born on 12 June 1929. I lived in Frankfurt until I was 4. Till 4 years she remained in Frankfurt, and Frankfurt is in Germany. As I said right now, that she had an elder sister Margot who was 3 years older to her, and both of them were born in Frankfurt in Germany. My father emigrated to Holland in 1993. My mother, Edith Hollander Frank, went with him to Holland in September, while Margaret and I were sent to Aachen to stay with our grandmother. Aachen is also a city in Germany. Aachen to stay with our grandmother. Margaret went to Holland in December and I followed in February, when I was plunked down on the table as a birthday present for Margaret. As we have come to know that Otto Frank was her father, and he was the most adorable man for her. Actually, there was a very strong bonding between the father and the daughter. Otto Frank loved her the most, and she loved her father the most. So both of had a very great attachment with each other. And actually in 1993, what happened that her parents, father and mother, emigrated to Holland. Holland is a part of Netherlands. So they went to Holland in 1983. Not in 1983, 1993. And then thereafter, then now Margaret and Anne Frank were sent to grandmother's house. So in absence of their parents, they were sent to grandmother's house in the city of Aachen. Aachen is a German city. And then they started living with her grandmothers, and they were away grandmother, and they were away from their parents. Her parents were living in Holland. And when till the age of 4, she lived with her grandmother. So what happened, Margaret went to Holland in December and she went to Holland in the month of February. So this is what she has given us. This is the brief introduction of a family, of the Frank family. I started right away at the Montessori nursery school. I stayed there until I was 6, at which time I started in the first form. First form means class 1. In the sixth form means standard 6 or class 6. My teacher was Mrs. Q. Perez, the headmistress. At the end of the year, we were both in tears as we said a heart-breaking farewell. Now she started going to Montessori nursery school. She was admitted in Montessori nursery school. She started studying there when she was 6 years old, and she got admitted in the first class, means class 1, standard 1, and then in the sixth form, means when she was in 6th standard, her teacher was Mrs. Kyoperes, and she was a very loving and caring lady. She was the headmistress, head teacher, and there was a great attachment. There was a strong bonding with each other. Means Anne Frank had a strong bonding with such a loving and caring teacher, Mrs. Kyoperes. So both of them had tears when they separated from each other. In the summer of 1941, grandma fell ill and had to have an operation. So my birthday passed with little celebration. Grandma died in January 1942. No one knows how often I think of her and I still love her. This birthday celebration in 1942 was intended to make up for the other. The grandma's candle was lit along with the rest. Now, she is talking because she was living with her grandma, and she was great. She was emotionally attached with her grandma. She had a great attachment with her grandmother. In the summer of 1941, grandma fell ill, and she had to undergo an operation. So there was no celebration. There was no means her birthday was not celebrated that time in 1941, and in the year 1942 her grandma actually in the year in January 1942 her grandma died, and in the same year 1942 uh, actually her birthday was celebrated. But her birthday was celebrated, and as I have said that she loved her grandma too much, very much. She had a strong bonding, she had a great attachment with her grandma. So on the celebration, on the day of the celebration of her birthday, isn't it, her touching gesture of lighting a candle, she also lighted a candle on her birthday for her grandma, to remember her grandma. This shows her love for her grandma. So, her touching gesture, I would say, her loving gesture of lighting a candle for grandma shows that she had great love for her. The four of us are still doing well, and that brings me to the present date of 20th June 1942 and the solemn dedication of my diary. Means now actually she has started her diary writing Saturday 20th June 1942. This is a chronicle. This is a chronicle, means her diary is a chronicle. It is in chronological order. So chronological order means the events whatever she has mentioned in the diary, she has mentioned each and every event during her stay in hiding in secret annex, date wise along with the dates. So when you mention something date and day wise, means when you mention with the date, with the particular date and with the particular day, this is called chronology. So the diary is in chronological form. So the first entry, Saturday 20th June 1942, this is her chronology, chron, chron, chronicle. So as I said that she addresses all her writings. She addresses all her writing to diary, all her writings to diary. Number one. Secondly, diary was her best friend. Diary was her true friend. It was the diary. It was the diary with which she could open up her heart. She could express her intimate feelings and problems. So she could express everything, innermost feelings with the diary. So she addresses all her writings to diary as a dearest Kitty. Kitty is her diary. It is the name of her. It is the name of her diary, and she calls her diary Kitty as her friend, as a true friend. Now, now she describes in this lesson. She describes her. She describes her schooling. She gives us an introduction of her school life. Let us see what she talks about. Dearest Kitty, Saturday 20th June 1942, our entire class is quacking in boots. Quacking in boots means shaking with fear and nervousness. Our entire class is quacking in boots. The reason, of course, is the forthcoming meeting in which the teachers decide who will move up to the next form and who will be kept back. Underline it. Half the class is making bets. Gian and I laugh ourselves silly at the two boys behind us, Gian and Jacques, who have staked their entire holiday savings on their bet. From morning to night, it's you are going to pass. No, I am not. Yes, you are. No, I am not. Even G's pleading glances and my angry outwards can't calm them down. If you ask me, there are so many dummies. Dummies means those who are weak in studies or worthless. Dummies that about a quarter, means one fourth, about a quarter of the class should be kept back, but the teachers are the most unpredictable creatures on earth. Underline it. Actually, she is talking about her school life, and she says that the whole class was shaking with fear, and the whole class was shaking with fear. It was the result time, and the teachers, that was the day of their destiny. The teachers were there to decide the fate of the students. It was on the teachers to decide who will be who will move up to the next class, means who will be promoted, and who will be kept back, means who will be detained. Means this was the duty of the teachers to decide as to who will be promoted to the next class, and who will be detained in the same class, who will be kept back in the same class. So the teachers, so that was the day of destiny for the students, and it was for the teachers to decide their fate, decide their destiny. So two friends, she mentions the name of two boys, Gian, no, no, Cian and Jacques. Cian and Jacques, they were such kind of students, and they were sitting at the back of Anne Frank and her friend Gian. So they were talking about their result. And they were talking in a very strange way about their result. They were not sure of they were not sure of the result. They were not sure whether and even they had made their bets. Means half of the class, I would say, half, she is saying, N is saying that half of the class was making bets, शर्त लगा रहा था लोग. So they were making bets that who will pass and who will fail, who will be promoted and who will be detained, who will be kept back. So they were making bets, and the way they were making bets, and they were saying, no, you will pass, no, I will not pass, you will pass, I will fail, you will pass, like that. All these talks, all these talks and all their conversation was really funny. So their funny conversation, means the funny conversation of her classmates, made Anne Frank and her friend Jean laugh. So she is talking about the class, and she says that if anyone asks me what about the other students, so Anne is of the opinion that one-fourth of the students, one-fourth of the class should be detained. Means one-fourth of the class are really dummies. They are weak in studies, they are worthless, they are useless, and such useless students, such worthless students, such students, those who are weak in study, should be kept back, should be detained, they should not be promoted. This is what N opines, and this is what N thinks about them. So this is her own opinion, that one-fourth of the class should be kept back, they should not be promoted because they are useless, they are worthless, they are the dummies one. Dummies means they are weak in studies, so they are good for nothing. So the students, those who are good for nothing, should not be promoted, they should be kept back in the same class, they should be detained. I am not so worried. I am not so worried about my girlfriends and myself will make it. The only subject I am not sure about in maths. Anyway, all we can do is wait until, and she says that the teachers are most unpredictable creatures on earth, because the result is in the hand of the teachers, and it depends on the mood of the teachers. It is for the teachers to decide the fate of students. It is for the teachers to decide who should be promoted and who should be detained. So nobody can predict, nobody say anything with certainty about the mood of the teachers, about the nature of the teachers, because it is for the teachers to decide the fate of the students. So teachers are unpredictable. You can't say anything with certainty about teachers. This is what she remarks. I get along. I am not so worried about my girlfriends and myself. We'll make it. The only subject I am not sure about is maths. Anyway, we all can do is wait. There was no way out. They have to wait for the result. They have to wait for the judgment. Until then, we keep telling each other not to lose heart. There was no way out. They were telling their classmates, they were telling their friends to have patience, don't to lose their heart. They were consoling each other. They were waiting for the result. I get along pretty well with all my teachers. Now, this is Anne's opinion about teachers. She says that she was getting along well. She was getting along well means she was getting along pretty well, means she was getting pretty well with all the teachers. There are 9 of them, 7 men and 2 women. There were 9 of them, means there were 9 teachers altogether, and 7 out of them were male teachers and 2 were female teachers. Mr. Keesing, the old fogey who teaches maths, Mr. Keesing was maths teacher, was annoyed with me for ages means for a long time, because I talked so much. After several warnings, underline it, after several warnings, he assigned me extra homework, an essay on the subject, a chatterbox. A chatterbox, what can you write about that? I worry about that later. I decided. I jotted down the title in my notebook, tucked it in my bag, and tried to keep quiet. That evening, after I had finished the rest of my homework, the note about the essay caught my eye. I began thinking about the subject while chewing the tip of my fountain pen. Anyone could ramble on and leave big spaces between the words, but the trick was to come up with the convincing arguments to prove the necessity of talking. I thought, and suddenly I had an idea. I wrote 3 pages Mr. Keesing had assigned me and was satisfied. I argued that talking is a student's trait, underline it, and I would do my best to keep it under control, but that I would never be able to cure myself of the habit, since my mother talked as much as I did, if not more, and that there's not much you can do about inherited traits. Now she particularly describes her maths teacher, Mr. Keesing. Mr. Keesing was her maths teacher, and he was a very strict man, a strict teacher. He was a strict disciplinarian. He expected discipline and decorum in the class. He wanted everyone to maintain decorum in the class. He wanted pin drop silence in the class. He was an old fashioned teacher. And actually this Anne Frank, Anne Frank, actually she was an intelligent student, and actually she says that she was not pretty sure about maths. So her maths teacher, Mr. Keesing, was annoyed with her. Means Mr. Keesing was her maths teacher. He was a very strict teacher. He was a man of strict discipline. He expected discipline and decorum in the class. He expected everyone to maintain a pin drop silence for the smooth functioning of the class. And Mr. Keesing, her maths teacher, was really annoyed with, or angry with Anne Frank, because Anne Frank was a very talkative girl. She talked so much in the class, and that is why he was annoyed with her, and he gave several warnings to Anne not to talk in the class. So despite his several warnings, there was no change in Anne Frank, and that is why he got irritated, and he assigned her some extra work as a sort of punishment to write an essay on chatterbox. So Mr. Keesing gave her extra homework. Mr. Keesing assigned her extra homework to write an essay on chatterbox. Actually, chatterbox means talkative, one who talks too much, जो बहुत ज़्यादा बात करता है. We have one more word, that is called garrulous. One who is too much talkative in the class is also called garrulous. So she was a very talkative girl, and Mr. Keesing wanted to make her realize her demerits. See, because talking is a bad habit. And then she was asked, Anne Frank was asked to write an essay on chatterbox. Chatterbox means talkative. Actually, Mr. Keesing wanted Anne to realize her mistakes, to realize the merits and demerits of of talking too much, or to realize the demerits of being so much talkative. But now she came back and she wanted to write something logical. She wanted to prove that talking is not a bad habit. And she wrote in her essay that talking is a student's trait. Trait, T-R-A-I-T, trait means quality or feature. So talking is a student's trait. This is exactly what Anne Frank mentioned in her, that talking is not a bad thing. It's a it's a student's trait. It is the student's trait, and moreover, she wanted to prove the logic. She wanted to justify her statement. She wanted to justify that talking is a student's trait. So, in order to justify her statement, the habit of talking, means she wanted to prove that talking is not a bad thing. And in order to prove the validity of her statement, she wrote in her essay that talking is a student's trait, and she had inherited this quality of talking from her mother. So this is an inherited. Inherit means to get something, some qualities, physical and mental qualities from parents is called inheritance. So she mentioned in her diary that she got the habit of her talking from her mother. That is why she got it from her mother, and that is why it is that is why uh, this trait is not a bad trait, and chatting is, a student's trait, and inherited traits are not curable. Since I have got this quality of talking from my mother, I have got this quality of talking from my mother, it is incurable. So this is what she uh, proves, this is what she mentions in her diary to prove, to justify that talking is not a bad habit. So dear students, that's all for today, and I'll teach you the rest of the things in my next class. Till till then, be happy, stay blessed, keep learning, keep practicing. Thank you very much. बंद करो भाई।